I know my reading wasn't perfect, I apologize, but we were talking about Josiah and how there was a plot to kill his father Amon and he didn't get revenge. Well, it's quite interesting. Not that I agree, but the Lord was involved, so it makes sense. And we're talking about Hezekiah and how he started off doing the right thing, and how overall he was a righteous man. We talked about Manasseh going to Babylon. We touched on Jehoaz. We touched on Asa. Okay. We're talking about Chronicles and the fall of Jerusalem at the end, Assyria and how Persia took over. We weren't really talking about it. I was reading the Bible. Okay. So when you go back, to the cults, Justinian the First, around 500, A.D. or C.E. So let's go back to the start and how it developed and what was going on in the empires that developed and why that's important. The Romans were looking for a god to champion, and they decided to champion the Christian idea. Hmm. So, we talk about Mithra, Demeter, Dionysus. We talk about Zeus. We talked about Uranus. Remember we talked about Operation Uranus, Operation Barbarossa, Operation Mars, Operation Winter Storm. And we talked about the variations of the operations as well. We talked about the Panzers and the Luftwaffe and the different weapons the Germans used. They had their own MP. They had their own version of the grenade. And it looked like a lot like a. The name just slipped my mind right now, but it looks a lot like like a torch, and they just throw it and boom. It's like a contact grenade instead of a delayed time, time released. Now, what you end up seeing is that the special forces uses small amounts of plastic explosives to gain entry into places, and there's different tactics, okay, wire cutters and different ways they deploy, with ropes, and their gear is important to them. Okay, so it was the evolution of the military-industrial complex, so to speak. It's like we've always had a military-industrial complex, and Eisenhower just pointed it out and made it very obvious what was going on. Most people didn't understand anything about that, and it goes back to the ancient Jews and Abraham and before that, and how the Europeans cultivated their ideas and stole their ideas during antiquity, and how all throughout the Renaissance and the Dark Ages and all throughout the Golden Age of Islam, why Europe's having its Dark Age, the ideas are being bounced back and forth between East and West, and it finally lands in the West to kind of take control of it, in Rome and Italy and France and England, which becomes the UK. Okay, so what's going on in the news now? You got South Korea, and the drills. America is got a lot of cute stuff going on over there. And see, America has a lot of interest abroad. So once they concentrate too much on one, they neglect the other ones, and they understand that. So, they're really trying to calculate this war and how to do it without, bringing down the whole complex, the whole military complex. So it's important to notice that these different gods and these different minor deities that I bring up, and like the Cobra goddess, and I bring up the different minor deities like Heka and Heka and Happy, and I bring up Apep, and Harkat, and Surkat, etc. So, and there's these other deities I don't really talk much about, like Ptah. I don't really, ones I really talk about is Horus, Osiris, Sobek, Isis. Those are like the center of my study. Ra, Amen, and so be it. So